Welcome to this tutorial on Adobe Lightroom Classic. In this tutorial, I'm going to cover importing photos into the Adobe Lightroom catalog. The catalog is one of the key features of Adobe Lightroom. Not all image editing software has it. What it allows you to do is to manage and name and work with metadata of all your images. Not just develop them, just not edit them, but keep track of them, manage them, make sure they're in the right spot, organize everything. Trust me, this is really important as you get into hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of photos. You want to have a solid organizational system. This is something that I would say the average beginning Lightroom user who has no training has screwed up, and they mess up their catalog, and it's 6 months, a year down the road, and they can't find anything, and it's a mess. And then they stumble across a video on YouTube on how to organize right. Then they realize it's really hard to do once they're already in the catalog. They start pulling their hair out, they're frustrated. So we're going to make sure that's not you. We're going to make sure that we have everything organized right from the start. Before we import some photos, though, we do need to change one setting up in the Lightroom Preferences. So I want you to come all the way up to the top here to Lightroom Classic and Preferences. If you're on Windows, I believe this is under Edit. We're going to click on Preferences, and there's a series of really hard to read small tabs up here, and one of them says Performance. And then under Develop, we are going to choose and click Use Smart Previews instead of Originals for image editing. That's going to do one important thing. That's going to, when we're developing our photos, we're going to import our photos as Smart Previews, and in the Develop module, it will edit using those, which are smaller files, and it speeds up the system, speeds up the computer for the Develop module. Alright, so now we need to import some photos. If you have Lightroom Classic open and you were to plug in a camera or an SD card, the import dialog box would pop up automatically. If you have the camera or the SD card plugged in and then you open up Lightroom Classic afterwards, what you have to do, like me, is come down here to the bottom left of the library module and click Import. This is going to open up the very, very important library module or import dialog box. What I want you to do is pay close attention. I want to make sure that you have the right settings for your photos when you import them, and you're importing them into the right place. I'm going to look and check, so we want to make sure we get this right. On the left-hand side of the import dialog box is Select Source. This is the source of where your images are that you're going to import into the Lightroom catalog. It could be the camera, it could be a card, it could be another folder, it could be an external drive. There's lots of areas where you could import photos from. I'm going to import, I don't have a camera or an SD card. What I have is an external drive. So typically you'll see something like no name or something like that that represents your camera or card. I have a backup of one right here in my external drive, so I'm going to click on that. And I want to make sure right here at the top of this column, Include Subfolders is checked. Now my photos loaded really fast because I'm going from an SSD drive. Yours might take a little more time to load in this middle area. What is this middle area? These are the files that are on the source that you have selected, typically your camera or SD card. Up at the top, you have some options here. You have Copy as DNG. That is Adobe's proprietary version of a RAW file. We don't want that. 99% of the time, we're going to be using Copy. All that means is we're copying the images from your camera and we're importing them into your Google Drive. Sometimes you might want to use Move. So if you have some photos in a folder and you want to move them to another folder, Move is really good. Add would be you already have some photos downloaded or somehow on your computer somewhere and they're not in Lightroom and you like the folder they're already in, you're just going to add them to the catalog and keep them where they're at. 99% of the time we're going to use Copy. Now another thing is all of these photos that are popping up for you, they're probably not all yours. You're going to be working with partners as you go out to film or shoot. And there's other people in the class. You might not have formatted the card. There might be photos from other periods. We don't want to import other people's photos. You only want to import the photos that you took for the particular assignment that you're importing. So what I want you to do down here at the bottom of this middle section, I want you to do uncheck all. Now you can see none of them are highlighted. Then you're going to look through your source, typically your camera card, and you're going to look for only those files that you took for this assignment that you're trying to import. So for example, I'm going to pretend that I didn't take these, that this is the first one for this assignment that I want to import, and I want to import all the way down to this one. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click. So I clicked on that one, and then I held shift and I clicked on that one, and it highlighted all of them in between. Now some of these I don't want to import, so I'm going to command click on some of these to not import them. Then what I want to do next to make sure that they're actually selected is click any of the checkboxes of these pictures that are highlighted, and you will see now they are selected, and we're telling Lightroom these are the photos that are mine that I'm going to import. Over here on the right, far right column, this is kind of our destination column. All of our settings for the files we're going to import and where we're going to import them to. First up, file handling, right? You can open this up with the little triangle. We have build previews. By default, it's set to minimal. And there's 4 options for build previews. So when you're importing raw photos into Lightroom, it's going to build previews because you technically can't see a raw file. You're seeing a preview of it as you adjust it. Minimal and embedded and sidecar, don't use those. They're really small, they're really low resolution. As soon as you try to edit them, Lightroom has to make a standard version anyways. Only benefit of these two are if you have a ton of photos you need to import really fast because you need to get the card somewhere else. We want to import using standard. So build preview standard. Next, check right next and select build smart previews. Why? What is build smart previews? Photographers typically do not store the photographs on their computer's hard drive. They typically store them on an external drive or some other external storage device. Build smart previews creates a high-resolution compressed version of your raw files and puts them on your computer's hard drive. The benefit of this is if your external hard drive is not connected to your computer, you can still edit those files, and as soon as you plug it back in, whatever edits you made, it will apply to the raw files. For my students, you guys are going to be using Google File Stream, and Google File Stream is going to mount your Google Drive, and it's going to act like an external hard drive. And sometimes it won't mount, sometimes it won't be available, but as long as you have chosen Build Smart Previews, you will be able to edit. We also want to select Don't Import Suspected Duplicate, so make sure that's checkmarked. Now, under File Renaming, leave this unchecked. We do not want to rename our files upon import. I used to recommend this. However, you guys are going to take a lot of photos and a lot of them are going to be bad. All right? Photographers take a ton of photos and then they cull through them and get rid of the bad ones. Well, as soon as we do that, there's going to be gaps in your numbering system. So we're going to save the file rename process until after the culling process where we get rid of our really bad photos. Apply during import. This is where you apply developed settings or import settings that you want to apply to all the photos upon import. In a previous tutorial, we created a copyright metadata preset for the current year and your name. So select that. Down here under destination, we're going to import photos from somewhere, typically a camera or card. We need to put them somewhere. We do not want to import them to your school's computer's hard drive. We want to put them on your Google Drive, which is going to act like an external hard drive for us. By default, Lightroom wants to put them on your computer hard drive. And by default, it wants to organize them by date, which I do typically do for my personal files, but we're not going to do that for class. So first things first, into subfolder. And then for our subfolder name, that is going to be the name of the assignment. So if we're shooting portraits, you would type portraits. If we're shooting sports action, you would type sports action. All right, so the subfolder is always going to be the name of the assignment you're importing the images for. Then under organize, we don't want to organize by date. For this class, we want to import into one folder. So what it's going to do, and I'm going to call mine, these are Grand Tetons. So I'm going to pretend the name of my assignment was to take pictures for the Grand Tetons. So my subfolder is going to be Grand Tetons. That's the name of my assignment. It's going to go into one folder. We do not want it to go into Macintosh HD, so close that up. Instead, come down to Google Drive. If you do not see Google Drive, you did the Google file stream setup incorrect. So ask 2 of your neighbors. Get help from somebody next to you, or go back to the mission where we set that up. So I'm on Google Drive. I'm going to go under My Drive. You should have a folder that you dragged over, right? Showed you how to do that in an earlier lesson. And you have a folder that I created with your name, the name of the class. That way I have access and you have access. I created a practice one for this assignment, for like a fake student, just so I can show you. And inside of there, I have a folder called photography. All the photo assignments we're going to do, I'm going to import them, and they're going to have their own folder in photography. So we'll see photography, and every assignment will have its own folder. In this case, my pretend assignment is called Grand Tetons. You can see it matches right there. Once I have all that, I have my photos selected, only the ones that I want. I have standard, build smart previews, don't import suspected duplicates. I have my copyright information, the name of my assignment, into one folder and into Google Drive under photography. I'm good to go, and I'm going to click import. It's going to take a little bit of time depending on how many photos you have, but eventually they will pop up here like this, and you're good to go.